Sup, goofballs? Welcome to Furi, the 2016 action game spawned from the brilliant minds behind Squids and Squids Odyssey. Furi is a game made to truly test a gamer's limits, in a Souls-like get-good kind of way. The game's bullet hell elements combined with the euphoric swordplay would shatter the mind of any person over the age of 40, and for the non-hardcore gamers, will more than likely make them slam their head on their desk. But for the gigachads that stick with it and get better, I can assure you, you will not regret playing this game, and it may even in fact become a new favorite. To start the game, go ahead and select Classic for character and Fury for difficulty. Whatever you do, do not select Promenade. Last time I checked, we're gamers, and gamers never back down from a challenge. My bad. Anyways, in the first cutscene, you'll be introduced to a man who you will soon assume control over, being held up by a device originally designed with the express purpose of restraining pit bulls, but it has since been reutilized to prevent you from escaping. Why are you strapped up to that machine? Good question. As described by the first talking character, aka your prison guard, you were a weapon, a bringer of death. So essentially, you're in this prison for girl bossing just a little too hard. Though not the goal, you do eventually learn of your origins and how exactly you are this bringer of death as the game progresses. But the overall goal, simply explained, is to kill 9 different guardians, each of whom inhabit a prison world, to prevent designated prisoners from reaching the Earth. In this case, those designated prisoners are you and kind of sort of the voice, which is that guy with the bunny hat. From how it sounds, yes, this game is just one long boss rush. It is short, but holy shit, it is sweet. So sweet, in fact, it is a Garmo guarantee. You'll be pitching a huge-ass tent by the time the credits roll. A tent so huge, you'll have to do 600 jumping jacks to reroute the blood elsewhere. Now the gameplay. At its core, Furi is a bullet hell / action game hybrid mix, with a little bit of a twin-stick shooter vibe sprinkled on top. The gameplay itself is rather simple. There is an attack, a dodge, as well as a charged dodge, a parry, a ranged attack, and a charged ranged attack. When locked in close quarters combat, which occurs when you take down the blue part of a boss's health bar, much of the same controls stick. However, instead of shooting projectiles, your character will now charge up a melee attack, which is indicated by the orange glow your armor will get. The sheer depth of each boss in this game is simply jaw-dropping. Well, it's a boss rush, I'd sure hope so. As obvious as that statement of mine was, I really don't know how else to describe it. The devs managed to nail each feel and personality of every boss in the game down to a T. Just the level of detail and nuance added in each subsequent phase of a fight is so goddamn cool. Like in some fights, a phase change may just be something as simple as a ramping up of speed or attack power, or even just adding a new attack to a combo. But every once in a while, during a new phase, the boss will say something or will even just start acting a little bit more desperate. In one fight, for example, without spoiling it, it starts with you being the hunted, the prey. But as the fight progresses, you find yourself becoming the hunter as the boss gets much more desperate. She starts using new attacks, she vocally starts getting more anxious, the music changes. It's all such a cool addition. It makes the fights feel real. To simplify it, each boss in this game has a personality, and though it's the job of the developer to make each fight challenging and different so as to, avoid repetition and avoid making the player bored, the extent and pure dedication they actually put into this is incredible. It's really only something you can understand by playing the game, but it's really cool how real they make these fights feel. Something that is rarely ever accomplished in gaming. I should also mention, while you're engaging in bloody combat with each boss, your ears will get the special privilege of being able to listen to this game's banger soundtrack. You don't believe me? Have a listen. If you're at all worried about the sample songs I used being the only good songs in this game, don't worry. Every boss, except for maybe one, in his own little different way, his theme's good. I wouldn't exactly call it a headbanger, though, or anything. Like, you're not bopping your head as the fight goes on, but it definitely fits the atmosphere. Either way, it's honestly astounding how they managed to not mess up once in regards to boss themes. This game is punishing in a way only comparable to Walmart when it finds out one of its stores tried unionizing. And if you don't know about that, search it up, it's a real thing. Some elements of this game border on CBT / BDSM levels of mind-numbing agony. And this, mind you, is on the medium difficulty with the easiest character, But let me tell you, there is no better euphoria than when you finally beat a boss. For example, it took me around 4.5 hours, I think, to beat the game for the first time, and a quarter of that was spent on one goddamn boss. After beating him, though, I felt incredible. The adrenaline was pumping, and the serotonin was flooding into my brain. However, as a result of that, I became aware of the immense amount of swass, or swamp ass, and just really the vast amount of sweat on my body. It was so bad, I had to change clothes afterwards, but hey, a gamer's gonna game. Between each boss's transition, you'll get access to an insanely complex and wacky little feature that I'm sure will alienate some and unite others. An auto walk. Yes, that's right, an auto walk. Long gone are the days where you have to painstakingly push the left stick forward or the W key in. One simple press of a button and boom! You can sit back in the chair and relax while that goofy little bunny man explains to you the lore of the world. While you walk over, feel free to fill up your gamer tank and congratulate yourself for overcoming that last boss by rubbing your tummy and stroking your chin in pure glee. After all, it's the only break you'll get before you're mercilessly flung around the arena some more. Diving a little deeper into the bosses for 1 second, I want to share with you some strategies, as some bosses have some rather annoying tendencies. Some of them like to run away. 2 I can think of off the top of my head specifically. Instead of exploring the arena looking like an idiot, just activate your parry and it'll show you where the bosses are, as apparently the parry is permanently locked in the direction of where the boss is, no matter where they are. Even if they're halfway across the arena, it will always show you where they are. Besides the bosses that run away, some also have incredibly easy to exploit phases, such as the Strap, where on one of her phases, she struggles greatly to escape your gaze. But if you continuously abuse the charged melee attack, you can effectively delete that entire phase from existence. Hey, so looking at the footage in post as I'm editing this, I realized that the Strap exploit that I was talking about, I'm pretty sure it exists, but as I was trying to get, footage for it by playing the game, I fought her like 7 goddamn times, and no matter how hard I tried, I could never do that exploit. But essentially, for those who may want to try it, once you enter phase 5 and she, exits her little thing, and she's on foot, there's a very small window where she'll try running away. Just charge attack her, and if you hit it, you can essentially just infinitely keep hitting it as long as your timing's right. I don't know if I somehow got shittier at the game or if I'm just an idiot, I don't know, but just figured I'd give a bit of an explanation as to why there's legit no footage of me proving this exploit, but if you do want to try it, that is essentially what it is. She won't be able to get off even one attack if you're smart, and it makes the fight much more bearable. But even though it's not a terrible fight, it is very rewarding to exploit it. I don't know how else to put it. Also, one last tip, you can parry projectiles. I'm not sure if I just wasn't paying attention or if it was never told to me, but apparently you can, and it makes a lot of things objectively easier. And I didn't even figure that out until my second playthrough, and I think I was watching a YouTube video or something and it just popped up and I'm like, what the shit, you can do that? Either way, no, you can do that. It will save you a lot of mental agony. It'll, make things much more bearable. After you're done beating the game for the first time, you may find yourself hungering for more. Luckily, the game gives you more than enough resources to jump right back in at your leisure. You can replay the game on the newly unlocked highest difficulty Furi. You can try your hand at the new character Onamusha, which I should say is locked behind DLC. As is the One More Fight section of the game, which is also DLC. But it's not like the DLC is that much more expensive, and if you pay attention to the Steam page, you can get the main game plus the DLC bundle for pretty cheap. I should warn you though, if you do actually end up trying out Furier, the hardest difficulty in the game, no, it is not for the faintest of heart. The aggressiveness of every little thing in the base game is cranked up to an objective 11, but to be honest, I'd round it up to a 12, as it really is just that much more difficult. The game becomes so aggressive, I found myself getting my salad tossed by bosses who gave me no trouble on the normal difficulty. It almost borders on bullshit levels of challenge, but for the most part, it is overcomeable. The game tells you it's a true challenge, so expect that, as it is not an understatement. It is so goddamn difficult, but if you put your mind to it, it is very rewarding. In the case of One More Fight, it introduces 2 new bosses to the game that for some reason weren't included in the vanilla version. The reason behind that, I have no clue, but the first boss of available is the Flame, and you can fight him in either or difficulty, whether that be Fury or Furier. The first boss, the Flame, is available in both of the two difficulties, but beating him once on either unlocks the penultimate boss of Fury, Bernard, a culmination of every boss in the game, and a really goofy looking guy. Each phase of his pretty much replicates something from a pre-existing boss with almost unmatched intensity, even on Furier in the base game. He'll take attacks that other bosses use, but somehow make it just that much more challenging to fuck with. I should mention, he is only available in Furier, so prepare for probably the hardest challenge in the game, as Bernard is, simply put, fucking cracked. Is the classic character becoming a bit too repetitive, or perhaps you've grown to a level where you're no longer challenged by the game? Well, don't worry. The game bakers have another character for you to try your hand at, Onamusha. Now, I won't sit here and lie to you by saying she is super complicated, because she isn't, but she is different and adds a little bit more spice to the game. Now, what makes her so different? Well, for starters, her projectiles behave entirely different from the base character, and depending on the stance you're using, have two different patterns. Before I tell you about that, though, let me tell you about what these stances are. There is a fast stance and a slow stance. In the fast stance, you do little damage but build up the star gauge quicker, and of course you move quick as fuck, at least in the dodging department, as instead of a charge dodge as you have with the classic character, you can now dodge twice in a very quick succession. Other than the low damage and quicker dodges, everything else pretty much operates at the same pace as the classic character, including the projectiles. In the slow stance, you do fat damage, but as the name suggests, you move at a snail's pace. And instead of the normal dodge, you now dodge roll like you would in Dark Souls. Except you don't have iframes, it's just a shitty, slow-ass, heavy dodge. Your projectiles also become much beefier, but your rate of fire drops exponentially. You probably noticed I name-dropped something called the star gauge. Well, that is ultimately what makes Onamusha a nutty character, as once that puppy's filled all the way up, upon activation, you operate at full speed and full power, both at the same time, effectively combining the pros of both stances. The gun also fires 3 busted piss balls that, for ranged boss fights, practically trivializes the whole damn thing. One last thing I haven't mentioned is perhaps something you've noticed in the footage when I zoomed up to the star gauge. Depending on the stance you are in, another gauge will be present, I'm pretty sure, to the left of the star gauge. When fully charged, it pretty much means upon switching your stances, your projectiles will be buffed temporarily. For example, when switching from fast to low, the projectiles will retain their high damage but will fire way quicker, and when switching from slow to fast, you'll start firing 5 shots at once, then 4, then 3, and so on. In order to play Onamusha well, really all I can suggest is to make sure you switch stances regularly, but not too quickly, as again, you have to let that little gauge next to the star gauge charge up before you can actually take advantage of it. But other than that, all other strategies with Onamusha fall upon you. This game, though it may, pardon my French, piss me off beyond belief, looking at you, you old bastard, it is easily one of my favorite games that I've played as of late. The story, albeit there and rather interesting, is not important or integral to the experience. The combat is quick, unforgiving, but insanely rewarding and addicting. Blended together with the impressive, boner-inducing soundtrack, the easy-to-learn, hard-to-master combat system, and the meticulously crafted bosses, this game creates an adrenaline-filled journey that few games ever capture as well as this one. The game looks great for a game made in the Unity engine, and though because of the size of the team and a lot of other things, the animation can look janky sometimes, but really overall it doesn't fuck with the final product in any way. It has a bright color palette that makes my eyes tingle each time I set foot in a new prison world. To sum it up, this game is great, the soundtrack is orgasmic, and if any of the things I talked about in this video piqued your interest, I implore you, buy this game. I barely scratched the surface of what makes this game great, and I hope I did a good job preserving the sanctity of that. Every boss in the game kicks ass, except for you, old man. You can die and rot straight in hell, you geriatric Anyways, thanks to all of you who made it this far into the video. My first video, in fact. I hope you enjoyed. Expect more content soon. Appreciate you all, and stay safe. Oh, also, obligatory shilling moment. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Garmo out.